My name is Itay Kozuch. I'm the Director of Threat Research at Insights. Insights is a cyber threat intelligence company that established about 3 years ago. And now we're live and kicking with a few hundreds of customers, 150 employees around the globe, offices in Tel Aviv, New York, Dallas, Boston, Tokyo, Amsterdam, and in a month or two also another one in Singapore. So let's get started. The session today called The Dark Side of Asia. The Dark Side of Asia is a fruit of 6 months of research that we have done on the Asian Dark Web, and in particular on the underground communities within Asia, with specialty of Japan, China, Indonesia, Vietnam, and South Korea. Few credits for the people who really work hard to write this research paper and bring it to life. So for Adar Rosenberg, she's our head of our Chinese desk. Noam Peterberg is our head of our Japanese desk. And me in the back. So let's get going. So a little bit, the agenda, as I said, I'm going to talk a little bit about the history, how it all starts, from where it all began. We're going to talk a little about Japan, South Korea, Indonesia, Vietnam, China, and in the end, we're going to do a live tour within the Asian Dark Web and also some parts of the clear web. So we're going to start with Japan. We call it the polite, innocent, environmental, friendly cousin of the dark web. The dark web scene in Japan started at the late 2012, early 2013. It starts very late after many others. Most of the use in the Japanese dark web is not always, for illegal purposes or malicious activities. It's actually quite funny. A lot of young Japanese people like to write their thoughts and put it there for them. It's another platform for sharing their thoughts, and they use it as a blog. They also use something very nostalgic. They use the BBS. It's still alive, yeah, it's kind of something like 1994, but they really like that. And also, of course, drug dealing and some other stuff that are not legal. Japan and the internet is Japan and the dark web and the internet is kind of fascinating because Japan have a lot of rules. Especially part of the Constitution of Japan, which did not wrote by Japanese, wrote by Americans after the Second World War. And Japan have a lot of issues with that constitution regarding monitoring threats in the internet. The Japanese police have lots of problems doing that because the law restricts them to do that. So any cybercrime groups that operates in Japan, and there's not many of them, can do almost whatever they want. A little bit about the landscape of the Japanese dark web. There is not a lot of pure Japanese websites, and we're going to see a few of them later, but the focus areas are on drug dealing, narcotics, unfortunately child pornography, and environmental activism. Japanese are very active with their activism, and there are a few groups that related to Anonymous that operates in Japan, OPs like OP Nuke or OP Fukushima, and OP Killing Bay that talks about why the Japanese government is still allowing hunters to hunt whales and dolphins and they're very against it. Funny fact about the Japanese dark web, and we've seen during the research, we've seen many websites, and one day one of the analysts called me and showed me a line almost at the bottom of every black market. And he translated for me, and it says that if you're not satisfied with a product, you can return it and get a refund. And I said, really? Drug dealer, refund? This is, I kind of imagine it like a scene from The Wire, a few guys standing in the corner selling drugs, and somebody came to them, hey, I'm not happy with that. Okay, so have a refund. And we actually, at the beginning, I didn't believe it. Who gives a refund for drugs? And we kind of engaged with several of the threat actors on those websites and said, yes, if you're not satisfied, send it back. You'll get a refund. He said, wow, that's totally new age, kind of even crime discovered customer service. And this was hilarious. We laughed at that for a few months. We'll move forward to South Korea. South Korea and the dark web scene started earlier, kind of in the mid of 2000, around 2006. We managed to trace that. It could be that it starts earlier. This is the earliest time that we managed to trace it. Most of the South Korean websites are actually in English, which is quite a surprise. There are a few, of course, in Korean, but most of them are in English. They're particularly the landscape, and I think they're most favorite of black markets. There are a few of them that's kind of addressing in Korean and some of them sells only within Korea, and some of them are willing to ship the products all over Asia and some to Europe. Of course, the hot products, like everywhere, is narcotics. Everybody likes drugs, isn't it? And credit card information, especially credit cards that were stolen in Japan and in Korea, within Korea. We didn't find there much European credit cards. We also find a few US credit cards, American credit cards that have been sold there. Child pornography, still huge problem, global problem, all over Asia, and not just in Asia, all over the world. There are several hacking forums, a few of them in Korean, and most of them are in English. And we managed to trace a lot of Korean threat actors that are active, not only in the Korean hacking forums, also in the Western ones. And one of Korea's favorites is Hidden Wikis. I'm sure you all know this. It's kind of a repository of useful links. Depends what you're looking for. All kind of black markets, financial services, all kind of commercial services, hosting services, everything you want to find in the dark web, you can get from the Hidden Wiki. The traffic of users that we managed to catch that using Tor, we use Tor Project Analytics. You can get some, to understand how many users per day are using Tor, and we managed to get around 10,000 individually different users. So that's kind of nice. We see some action there. The next country we took a look at is Vietnam, because we usually hear about Vietnam in terms of somebody attacks something within Vietnam. And from time to time, we manage to hear that there are a few Vietnamese threat actors. We started to look into Vietnam because we managed to trace some threat actors from Russian forums, and we managed to identify them as Vietnamese. So we started to look into Vietnam, and we discovered that the dark web scene is also kind of started almost with South Korean around the mid-2000s. Many of the Vietnamese websites are in English. Some of them, we found a few activist websites in the dark web which are in Vietnamese, but like 95% of them are pure English. I think it's part of them, their way to get away from government tracking for those websites. And Vietnamese like in particular like markets. Number one product, of course, narcotics. Very few vendors are offering financial services like credit cards, bank accounts, logins, all kind of hacked PayPal accounts. They're less favorite. They really prefer drugs and in particular weed or cannabis, as we call it. Of course, like others, there are child pornography websites. We found many of them. Most of them are kind of copies of Indonesian ones, and we saw how it moved, and same websites are copied in different languages. And there are a few cryptocurrency exchange sites which offer all kind of services to exchange Bitcoin and Litecoin. Also, we find one that's willing to exchange Monero. The next one is Indonesia. Indonesia is one of the largest countries in Asia. And the dark web scene started there on the late 2000. We managed to trace it to 2009, actually April 2009. But again, there is a chance that it might a little earlier, a little. Most of the Indonesian threat actors, don't see the dark web as a big deal for them, because they usually prefer to work and doing their business within the clear web. There are some websites there, but nobody disturbed them on the clear web, so why bother? And they're kind of like to work their way there. The landscape of the Indonesian dark web is kind of, they prefer black markets. The number one product within Indonesia is the date rape drug. It's called Rufinol. They prefer it over other drugs, which kind of concerning. People kind of lost their faith in romance. Well, child pornography is very common in Indonesia. Most of the other websites in Asia, there are a lot of Indonesian movies or materials, unfortunately. And another big thing in Indonesia are illegal gambling websites. Because according to the Indonesian law, gambling is forbidden. They're not allowed to gamble. So they use the dark web as a good platform for gambling. Also, there are a few, of course, hacking forums that we managed to find. Kind of forums there. The Indonesian forums are kind of usually related to a specific group, and each group have their own forum which allow other people to come in, ask questions. They usually share their kind of goodies, malwares, all kind of guidance, what to do if I want to sniff traffic, if I want to do DDoS. Just share their knowledge to the rest. We'll see it a little bit later. We have one Indonesian hacking forum. And I'd like to start with, I think, the star of the show, how we can call it. We call it Red is the New Dark, because it is when China was, I think, the biggest mystery for us. Because getting into China and finding websites, it's kind of hard. There are some technology difficulties to get a Chinese IP, but it's doable. We managed to get over it and got ourselves an IP within the mainland. You also have to know Chinese, and a good one. If they will understand that you're not native Chinese, that's a game over. Nobody will talk to you. And we saw a few of our avatars are kind of burned because of that, because somebody sensed that the Chinese is not good enough. Chinese are threat actors. These are very suspicious. And if they think for a moment that something is not safe, just gonna burn your user. So a little bit of history about China. The internet arrived to China on 1994, and by the year of 2000, only 22.5 million. They had only 22.5 million of users. In China, it's like nothing. Less than 2% of users. But by the year of 2018, the estimated number of users was about 772 million of users in the internet. Means that's kind of cracked the chart and becoming go to 55.8% of use in the internet. I mean, more than half of the people in China is using the internet, which is even few percent more than the rest of the world, the world average. And there is a lot of government influence, about using internet, and unlike most countries, China's internet is kind of isolated, at least part of it. Some of that is open to the world, but some part of it is kind of isolated and restricted for use only within China. And from there, we got some, difficulties to get to some of the websites. Most of the internet in China are controlled, censored, and monitored by the government. Means that almost any activity is tracked, and they can get real fast and understand if there is a legit website or not. A little bit between dark web and clear web in China. Most of the Chinese are not using the dark web because it's a lot harder to get a Tor and browse through Tor. So most of their business are within the Chinese internet. And some of the websites are kind of free and open to everybody, and some of the websites you must have a Chinese IP to get into. The reason why I think most of the, call it, websites from, that's related to the hacking scene or cyber scene is in the clear web is because they're not really afraid to work within their clear web. In many cases, although, the Chinese government is against it, and from time to time we catch up that there are arrests and they're arresting groups and many people that, and operators of the websites. But even Chinese police and Chinese intelligence services have budget and restrictions, so they cannot get to all. There are hundreds of thousands of websites there, so it's really hard to get each and every one of them, and it takes a lot of time. So they prefer to take their chance, in order to get to a lot more people within the network. China's internet motivation for use, and we see there is a lot of nationalism from the side of the Chinese threat actors. Some of the groups trying to get financial profit or financial gain, using by cybercrime or selling stuff, stealing foreign intellectual property. A lot of threat actors are not trying to steal money, just trying to get information or intelligence. We will see it a little later in the tour, how to try to do it. Of course, technical interest. Chinese, like any other, at least the threat actor, are interested in to learn about new technologies and technology from the West. So we see that quite a lot. There are a few activist websites within China, people that are against the government and against the Communist Party. And from time to time we see new websites that talking about it. Fame, like everyone wants to get recognition, and that's okay. And knowledge sharing. Many of the websites are kind of sharing information between each other while they're still anonymized. You don't have to log in order to ask questions and get answers, which is quite nice. So, this is a little bit of background. Now I would like to take you to the tour itself, to see for yourself. This website, oh, you see that? Great. Although it's in Chinese, I'm going to translate it in a second so we all can read it. This website called Mushroom is a Chinese black market. Usually it typically sells drugs. As you see, most of it is cannabis, mushrooms, LSD, and just a little bit of there are all kind of guides how to do all kind of hacking stuff. Here, now it's in English so we can read. A few interesting things in this website. First, look at the prices. The currency that you see here is the Chinese yuan. It's not Bitcoin, not Litecoin. It means that they are addressing Chinese. They're not addressing people from the outside of China, which is okay. Look, they know who their customer. Also, their website is not usually support English. It's not a built-in English support, so you must be Chinese to buy here. Although they're willing to ship the drugs whatever you want in the world. It's not only limited to the mainland of China. You can also get it anywhere. Another interesting fact is the prices itself. As you see here, it's one of them. It's 90 yuan for a gram. Yuan is like the exchange rate is about 5.8 yuan for a dollar. This is the cheapest drugs you ever going to buy. Again, it's another sign that they're kind of planning to sell those drugs to Chinese, and this is what they can afford. Those are the prices within China. We compare it with, of course, with other black markets, and we saw that the level of prices in China are quite the same. If you compare it to other black markets, to most of the European and like Dream Market and others, the price is like 40% higher. So next time you're ordering, do it in China. It's a lot cheaper. It's like the Walmart of drugs. Next website I would like to show you. By the way, this website is on the clear web. Everybody can reach it, almost everyone. This specific service offering DDoS. DDoS as a service, how nice. You see they have prices. The prices, again, like the other black markets, are in Chinese yuan. It is not in Bitcoin, Litecoin, or any other currency. And they have different packages. It's kind of nice to get it that way. The one that I would like you to see in particular, they're offering for 5,000 yuan, 500 gigs of DDoS attack. This is cheap, huh? $738. I checked this morning. If someone is, interested, I think they can give us a price for the group, even better. But the prices are quite cheap. I mean, cyber as a service, and we saw many other vendors that providing those kind of services are extremely cheap, comparing to others in the world. And this is a little bit concerning, especially many people. The next website I would like to share, this is a Japanese website. It's all in Japanese, so I'm going to translate it in a second so you can all see, unless you can read Japanese. This specific vendor is offering to buy or sell intelligence, and not just intelligence I'm looking for something generic. You're looking for specifically for military, political, economic, science or technology intelligence, which is quite fascinating. He really knows what he wants. I'm looking for specific stuff. We engaged with them several times. This is all his interest. And something that kind of we're kind of suspicious with that this website is not really Japanese. Because in terms of Japanese culture, Japanese will never ask that straight. Look, I would like to buy this, 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 and this. And this is straight. It will take some time until they will open, and then they will ask, again, not very straight. Second of all, the level of Japanese he had a very good Japanese, but he's not native. So from that, we managed to understand that this guy is not really Japanese. Our first two suspects in the story are countries that have history that they're trying to get Japanese intelligence, or at least things about Japan. And those are China or North Korea. Those are our two suspects. Also, another thing, something that we managed to trace, that this guy is changing his PGP key like every 3 months. I'm not sure what's the reason, but probably a little paranoid. And so he changes from time to time. The next website is also Japanese. This is the website of a Japanese group that calls ourselves Anonymous. The Japanese activists are mostly, protest against environmental issues. There are two main issues that concerns them. One is the fact that the incident in Fukushima, in the nuclear power plant, wasn't really over for them. Some of them still blaming the government that there are still kind of polluted water within Fukushima, and they're still pumping them to the ocean and kill the ocean. And every year they're still kind of calling everybody to attack the Japanese government. And from time to time they're doing it not in a very specific day, just because they want to. It's all because of that. It's called Op Nuke, or Op Fukushima. The second operation that they're taking part of, it's called Hope Killing Bay. They're protesting against the Japanese government and hunters, and of course a few companies that process whale meat and whale fat. They're kind of protesting against that the Japanese government still allowing hunters to hunt whales in the sea, and of course as a part of that also dolphins, which they see is very bad. As you see, they're kind of active in other operations of Anonymous, like ISIS. Sorry. Well, that's wrong. Ops Technology and the KKK, which is that okay. They're calling to exploit, they're calling to attack all kind of Japanese websites, mostly government, but some of them are also private that have they're private contractors of the government. They publish the targets and links for the tools on Pastebin and their Twitter accounts. They change their Twitter accounts from time to time. They continue doing that until the Japanese government will finally listen to them and tell the truth to everybody. Next website is also a group that call themselves Anonymous. And they're actually Thai. They're from Thailand. And this particular group blaming the Thai government for being a puppet of the US. And they're kind of doing everything that the United States government and, keep following the policy of the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the US. And they're protesting against that. They believe that they are not really free after all. this one is already translated. This is how it looks in Thai, and this is how it translates. This specific website, except for this nice cover, yeah, we have the Vendetta mask. It's always nice. Offers a few things that are not typically anonymous. But we still think that those are anonymous. This group went a little bit too far. For the rest, usually anonymous when there's still information. When they get information, they kind of offering it, at least part of it, they like to publish part of it just to see that they have the capabilities. This group just offered full databases, just download them, take them, and go. One of them in particular is the FBI employees database that was leaked in 2016. And they're willing just for free. Just if I will click it, we will see the database itself. I won't do it here because I like to stay free. There is also a guide. It's called Guide Anonymous, which they teach about all kind of tools and provide links to their tools, guidance of how to do all kind of stuff, defacement, DDoS, almost everything you want to find, they're willing to teach, as a part of their ops. Next website, it's coming to us from Indonesia. This is an Indonesian one, although it's an English, part of it is in English, part of it in Indonesian. This website belongs to a group that's called Activist Indonesian. This group is, let's say, a well-known Indonesian threat actor. We're tracing them for the past 3 years, and they're active. Their targets are mostly companies and financial services within Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore. They're a closed region. They had a few attacks on against India, not the government, against financial services. This is kind of their main focus. And this group in particular offers tools, for the benefit of everybody. They're not charging money. They ask for donations, which is a different business case that from many others that usually sells them. As you can see here, there are exploits, hacking guidance, and malwares, which they're offering for free for the public. Let's have a look there. Doesn't work. Yes, it is. Okay. You can just pick one. This is the guidance. Depends. Whatever you want to have. If you want to know things about how to sniff things, brute force, if you better use in Metasploit in order to have attacks, social engineering methods, including they have some carding methods, how to make easy money, how to cash out credit cards. You have guidance in English and in Indonesian, just for free. It also offers malwares as a giveaways. Like here, you can get a T-shirt and a malware. So this is what they offer. They have lots of folders sorted by families and types. Most of them are already, all of them are known to everybody. But still, we already saw in the past that even, if security systems already familiar with this malware, there are still things that happened. I don't need to remind everybody, WannaCry, that because of one small patch, and you see what happened. And those guys are offering it for everybody. If you know the website, just go ahead and download it. Next website I would like to present, it's called Hack80. This is a Chinese website. It's still in Chinese. I'm going to translate it so you can see it. Here you go. This website is a kind of mixture of tech forum, hacking forum, kind of a black market, or it's an area that threat actors are kind of posting what they have, or people asking questions, hey, where I can get something, and people just, answer them, and this is how they do business. Later on, they're going to move to the QQ chat. QQ is one of the most famous Chinese platforms. It's kind of a mixture of Facebook, LinkedIn, all kind of chat platforms, and others. And this is what they use. As you can see here, we have somebody offering SMS bomb. Here, 100% all brute power on password. Sometimes some things are lost in the translation, because we just translated from Chinese. Here's a guy that offers an exploit framework, including attack demos. There are lots of tutorials that are offered here to attack. We managed to pick up also a few DDoS tools that was kind of moving here. People offer them to download. They provide links to GitHub and to other places that you can just download them and play with them. And so on, so on. This is a huge website, one of the populars. There is a lot of traffic, a lot of answers, questions. In many cases, also the admin answers. So we consider he's a threat actor. In the right side, you can see all kind of banners of commercials that people offering their goods. The second from top is offering PowerShells. You can contact them through his QQ number. And he would try to say it, they're quite cheap, by the way. And here, the next and kind of last website I'd like to show you is a part of the QQ platform. And as I said before, QQ is a very common and popular platform within the Chinese internet. Many use it for social networking, and some of the websites have been using for all kind of malicious activities. Let me just translate for you. This is kind of a very dedicated for hacking. You can find here almost anything. QQ for password cracking means that this is kind of a place that they will offer. There is kind of a forum for cracking how to crack passwords. Hacking tools, when you see QQ threat, is kind of methods of carding and all kind of those. Also, money online tips is again, those guys are offering credit cards and PayPal accounts for sale. There are hacking methods. Hacker attack, it means that it's kind of hacking as a service. People are offering their services as hired hackers, as mercenaries. You have a problem, just start talking with a guy, tell him what the problem, he offers you a price. And there are, of course, training materials and all kind of methods. And they have a vulnerability center, which is nice. They're mapping all CVEs, so they know based on product, not just technologies. It's kind of nice. You want to know what CVEs are valid for specific version of Oracle database, and they can see it immediately. It's very, very nice. It's very well organized. QQ Trojan, again, almost anything you want. Malwares, any type of malwares you can get. Let me just translate this page for us. See, it will take a second. Here it is. As you see, inside the forum, people are offering almost anything. If you want a specific Trojan to buy, if you want to get some methods of how to do stuff. Here there is a Trojan method of self-running, the one's relisted. The other one is 2 methods of how to hide a Trojan. Kind of sharing a lot of information. Some of them are quite old, some of them are pretty new, some of the things that we found within those websites are things that are quite new. Nobody knew about them. They're kind of 0 days for the rest of us. And this was kind of scary, because they're talking about it months, few months, and nobody had no idea. So as a part of it, we're doing a huge project in order to discover as much website as we can, to identify threats that coming from there. We believe that the biggest threats, the biggest common threats in terms of intelligence is there, because this is kind of an area that not many manage to crack it and get in and see what there is inside. As I said at the beginning, there are a lot of challenges in order to see what there is within Asia. There are lots of culture differences, things that how we used to write things are not very common there, and if we will act the same, we will get banned out. And of course, the language barriers is always tricky, especially with, in every language, and particularly in the Asian one, you have to have very, very good skills in the language, and it's hard to find, native Chinese or native Japanese or native Indonesian that also know cyber, that also willing to do that. So that's tricky. This is the tour we have. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Just feel free. We're going to leave this website on the back.
Have you seen a growth of moving to messenger-based systems in Asia, like we've seen in...
Sorry,
Have you seen a growth of people moving to messenger-based systems like Discord and Telegram, like we've seen in Europe and South America?
Yes, they are using in Telegram sometimes. Mostly threat actors that are probably not located within the mainland of China, because it's kind of a block. Some of them manage their way using all kind of VPNs and different methods to use Telegram. But in most cases, they're using, their most common platform is QQ, which they are kind of communicate within each other. Any others? Oh, sure.
So there's this open question people have about the proliferation of Chinese intellectual property theft. Is it state-sponsored or not state-sponsored? So people look to see if it's monetized anywhere from the government to validate whether it's probably state-sponsored. Do you see much, kind of military government-related
Activity?
on
Yeah, the first one I saw you, the third website I show you is a Japanese, but we don't think it's really Japanese, because Japanese don't try to get military intelligence on themselves. So it's kind of tricky. We believe that this is a threat actor that probably worked with one of the governments. It don't must be, an APT group. And we see, a lot of, we suspicion that a lot of the individuals that operates within the Chinese ClearNet and, considered as threat actors working with the government from time to time, this, in some cases, that buys a little quiet from the government, means that nobody will hunt them, and keeps the quiet. In some cases they just want for their own. So it's real tricky to identify who is the government and who is not. They're not identifying themselves. I work for the government. I have a few questions for you. Any other questions, guys? Yes. Sorry?
Which methods do you guys use to identify new sites?
New sites, okay. That's a very good question. There are a few things. We're working parallel in many ways. We have researchers that speaking the languages, of course, and we started with avatars in social media. Social media, especially in the Far East, is a good place to start. In China, for sure, also in Japan. And we just start to ask questions and see how it goes, and this is how it starts. We also use crawlers. We wrote several crawlers that can crawl within the dark web, and we're looking for all kind of signs that will connect it to a country, if it's a language or images or sometimes a region, if it's possible to discover it. Any other questions? Okay, so thank you very much for your listen. It's been fun.